Okay, good morning, everyone. Wow, a little loud. How are you this morning? Great. We have some new people with us. I met a few of you out in the lobby. Who's new? Yes, please raise your hands proudly. Yes, all right. Great. Wonderful to have you. Wonderful to have you. Just as a reminder, for me, my name is Chaim Solomon. I had a guy once, forgot his name. He was so in class, when I teach, I always ask people, because I try and learn everybody's names and it takes me a while. So, say your name before you ask the question. So this one guy once, they all had name tags. So his hand was raised. He had such a question he wanted to ask that when I called on him, he was ready to speak. And you know how almost the gear gets caught? I said, wait a second, what's your name? And for a moment, his brain froze. And he had to look at his name tag. Oh, yes, okay. Okay. So here we go. So for those of you who are new, we're here every Sunday to bring some wisdom of Kabbalah, some inspiration, that we're all going to change our way of thinking. Because when we stop and think about it, it's the way we think about ourselves in life and other people that determines what our behavior is. And everybody today understands the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction. So whatever we do in the outward world, that's what's going to come back to us. So then the more we change our way of thinking and our way of perceiving the world, the faster we're going to make our lives better. And that's the whole purpose of the wisdom of Kabbalah and what we do here every Sunday. So in order to get that started, I'm going to pay for it when I get home, huh? Okay, yeah, I see you too, okay. All right, so we have our affirmation, and yes, we do it every Sunday, but you're certainly encouraged to say it and remind yourself as many times during the week, because as much as we remind ourselves is as many times we are taking away the false beliefs we've carried with us for all of our lifetimes. Because it's those false beliefs that make us see things in the wrong way, and there, of course, we're going to behave in the wrong way, meaning it's not beneficial to us. Here in the Kabbalah Center, wrong doesn't necessarily mean immoral or illegal or unethical. It could simply mean just disadvantageous to us. Any of you ever made a business mistake? Might not be immoral, illegal, etc., but it might have been a little disadvantageous to you at work. Okay, fine. So that's what we're here to change, because the Creator gave us only all good all the time. So if I can ask you to join me, we're going to say it together. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And as we do every Sunday, because we're setting the pattern for the week, we're going to stand up and we're going to greet each other with warmth and friendliness and happiness, injecting our light into each other. So we have a special treat this morning, but before I do that, I just want to acknowledge a few people. Every week I tell you we have people watching us from all over the world. So I figured I might as well give them a little credit for watching, because some of these people, it's 11 o'clock here, it's midnight in some of these places that they're watching. So just a few people, and I wish I could give you all the hundreds of names, but a couple people who've contacted me recently. We have Marjan, who's in Dubai. Okay. We have Ferris and Carmen and a group of people who are in Hong Kong. So we want to make sure we acknowledge them. One I was just connecting with this morning, who's been a student for a number of years, lived in LA and now lives in Kuwait, Nada. So she's there learning in Kuwait. And then we have a little closer to us, we have Zach, who's created his own Zohar project. We talk every week about spreading the Zohar. So he lives in Tempe, Arizona, and he's made it his mission to spread Zohar to anybody and everybody in Tempe, Arizona. So if you know people, can go see him. And he's happy to give them the pocket Zohar. So just acknowledge to that. So here we go. We have something special. Please welcome. We have a wonderful singer with us who's going to sing one of her original songs, Bibi and Tom.
I'm Bibi Saboya. And first of all, I want to thank Chaim and Batia for having me here, and also the Kabbalah Center. And we got here from Brazil like almost a year ago, and this is my first song in English, so I hope you like it. The name is Maze of City Lights. Home is no place to be anymore, 'cause you're not around here. I just need to get out and go searching for you. When I saw you the other night, you looked into my eyes like we were just one, like nothing would ever tear us apart. Shouldn't have wasted our time. We're lost together in the maze of city lights. I always think of you, you're always on my mind. I feel your presence, feels like I am getting there. Seems you're so close to me, so just stay where you are. Magnetic attraction, fraction of a perfect time. And I'll run into you, and you'll be in my life. Even though we're lost together in the maze of city lights, I'll run into you, love. And even though we don't really know each other, I miss you, and I've never felt like this before. I guess that's what it's all about. Now, how many nights will I look for you? How many turns will it take till I make it through? All I hope that it's gonna be soon. It's gonna be soon. For now, we're lost together in the maze of city lights. I always think of you, you're always on my mind. I feel your presence, feels like I am getting there. Seems you're so close to me, so just stay where you are. Magnetic attraction, fraction of a perfect time. And I'll run into you, and you'll be in my life. Even though we're lost together in the maze of city lights, I'll run into you. Oh, oh, oh. I know you're next to me, next to me, next to me, next to me, next to me. I know you're close to me, close to me, close to me, close to me, close to me. I know you're next to me, next to me, next to me, next to me, next to me. Yeah, I know you're close to me, close to me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been wonderful. Okay. All right. So we want to thank Bibi and Tom for sharing their talents and abilities. If you know of someone or if you have some talent, you can contact us and we'll get you to Shayla Gonzalez, who's our event coordinator. All right. So let's go on with this morning. So how many of you would like to be free? How many of you wouldn't like to be free? Okay, great. So there's not a person on earth who probably in one way or another doesn't say they want to be free. So today we want to understand, what does that mean though? What does it mean to be free? Because for most of us, what do we think freedom means? I can do what I want, when I want, how I want, and the way I want. So imagine if just 8 of us tried to do that, to be free in that way. Right? So now we're commanding other people around us, and we're telling everybody what to do so that we'll be able to do what we want, how we want, the way we want, etc. What are you going to see? Chaos. Imagine if everybody on the road decided to drive how they want, when they want, the way they want, etc. Right? Even we all try that. And every now and then I mention it. What if we all tried to positive think green lights? Would it work out? No, it might here and there, but somewhere, somehow, one person's going to make a green light going this way, and the other person trying to make the green light going this way, and you know what? They're going to meet right in the middle of the intersection. Not in a very good way. So then Kabbalistically, freedom doesn't mean I can do whatever I want, how I want, etc. We're going to get into that. But I want to just bring to our attention, because as we mention every Sunday, consciousness is everything. So let's think about what may seem to us to be freedom, but it's not freedom. So the first thing, and probably the thing we're most familiar with, is when difficult situations arise, or there's people who are bothering us. So we think, look, I'm a free human being, God gave me free will, free choice, so I'm going to choose how to behave to these people. So this person hurt my feelings, so I'm going to hurt their feelings back. And this person was angry at me, so I'm going to be angry back. Or this one did this to me, I'm going to do the same thing back. So we say that's freedom. But the problem is, would you call a thief who's free to steal and then gets caught and put in jail, are they free? But they were free to steal, yes? But in the long run, they're not free, are they? Because now they're imprisoned in this little 6x9 cell for whatever the time is. And just while I'm on that subject, because when I first moved to Florida, part of the Zohar project was I went up with one of the students to meet the head chaplain of all the Florida jails. We wanted to bring Zohar to all the jails, put it in the jail. Now, what could be better than awakening God inside all these people, so when they get out, they don't go back to their old ways? So as we were up there, we were talking, and because we figured the easiest thing, if you get the head chaplain, he'll tell all of the chaplains in all the jails of Florida they should have a Zohar, rather than go one by one. So he was telling us that even prisoners who are in prison maybe 6 months to a year, when they get out, for at least the first 6 months and sometimes for years, they will still live as if they're in jail. They will live in a 6x9 environment. They'll wake up, they'll make their bed like they did in jail, they'll put the shoes under the bed like they did in jail, and their spouses or their family will start to be a little worried. So that imprisonment stays with them. So now let's think about it. The anger, the resentment, the hurt that you may have because of what somebody did to you, and therefore you responded in kind. So you say, see, I was free. But now think of it. Maybe 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later, you're still in bondage. You're handcuffed to that person. Because when you mention that person's name or you think about that person, what happens? It starts to boil inside you. So are you free? You may not have seen that person for years, but they're still handcuffed to you or you to them. So their negativity that happened 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years ago, you're still in bondage to it. You're still imprisoned to it. That's prison. That's not freedom. But we will think, well, I was free to act however I wanted, when I wanted, and the way I wanted, because I'm a human being. Yes, like the thief. He acted with his free will, or what he thought was free will, but long term he's imprisoned. Long term we are imprisoned. And the sadder part for us is at least the prisoner, he sees he's in jail. He knows he's in prison. You and I, until we become aware like we're learning today, we don't realize we're imprisoned. It's just justified. Do you remember what they did to me? If I described to you what happened, you'd say, yes, of course. I would also be angry. I'd also be hurt. So we're imprisoned. We're still in bondage to that person, to that situation. And I think about it even better. What if they left the physical world already? You have no resentment, no anger, no hurt towards somebody who's not in the physical world anymore? Think about that. Right? So how free are you? They're already free. They're out of the physical world. They're no longer tied to the physical world, but you're still tied to them. And then there's the other way also. What about when we look back on things that we did? And now comes guilt and shame, right? What about that? That's also bondage, is it not? We're in guilt and remorse about what happened back then. And we're wondering what's going to be. What can I do about it? And then you're stuck because we say there's nothing we can do about it. It happened so long ago. How can I find that person even? And what if I know them, right? But it was so long ago. So we had a student. You want to know, because some of you don't even realize. That's how much we're in prison. We don't even realize we're in prison. So I have a student just told me 2 weeks ago. He was scanning his Zohar. He's a relatively new student, maybe a year. So he's scanning his Zohar, and he's asking in his consciousness to be revealed things that are holding him back, things that are still blocking him in life. And what happens? He gets a memory from when he's 5 years old. The man's in his 50s. So he gets a memory of guilt towards one of his relatives. He went and he asked his mother about it. He says, is this true? Because he wasn't sure even if his vision was true. And she says, yes, but I don't know how you remember that. One of his relatives, when he was 5 years old, was dying, and it was a big tumult in the family. So he remembers as a 5-year-old child, first, of course, he wanted, health and healing or whatever, but it didn't look like that was happening. So he remembers as a 5-year-old child, in that sort of childlike innocence, seeing the suffering and basically wishing that the relative would die. So they'd be out of their pain and suffering or whatever, but wishing they would die. 50 some odd years later, he has that memory of the guilt that he's carried with him for over 50 years because he wished this person would die. And his mother was shocked how he could remember that from 5 years old. So now he's working on healing that, on overcoming it, so he can free himself from it. But you and I have to ask ourselves, how are we imprisoned to those things? Where are we imprisoned to our anger, our jealousy, our fear, our egos, our hurt, our resentment? Start asking yourself, and then ask yourself the question, and it is free will, do you want to stay handcuffed to that person, to that situation? Do you want to stay connected to that energy? If you say yes, I'm not here to tell you no, you can't. But if you realize now it's not helping you, and it's actually holding you back, imagine trying to drive your car with the emergency brake on. Will your car move forward? Yeah, I know, everyone looking at each other. I did that once, right? Right? How do you know your emergency brake on? You're pushing the gas and the car's just putting forward a little, jerking, right? And then you realize, oh, the emergency brake's on. So it might move, but not very quickly and not very well. So it's the same thing. Our resentment, our hurt, our guilt, and our shame are holding us back. So how can we progress as fast and as efficiently and as blessed as we could if we're holding ourselves back? And then, of course, there's the other type of bondage, to just the simple physical material world, right? And how do you know? In various ways. Can't help myself. What could I do? They made me, right? You fill in the blanks. But as soon as you hear that phrase coming out of your mouth or in your thoughts, you know you're a slave. You're a slave. What could I do? Right? They made me behave that way. They made me say those things. Did they really? What are you, one of those ventriloquist dummies? Oh, oops. Right? They made me say it. They made me do it. No, we're here with free will. But we have to realize we are. How many of you are caught up and imprisoned even to a successful business? Your business going well, your job going well, but you hear yourself say, no, I can't miss a day. Someone will take my place. Someone will, get the promotion, etc., etc. I had a student years ago who was telling me I wanted to invite him to one of our international events. What does he tell me? No, I can't go. The business won't be able to function without me. He owned 3 electronics stores. The business couldn't work without him. Okay, I'm trying to teach him what we're talking about today. No. He's been in business all these years, and that's how he grew from 1 store to 3, etc., etc. Sadly for him, a few months later, his father had a heart attack. So guess what he did? He spent a week straight with his father, helping his father heal the Zohar, all these things. And you know what happened when he got back to business? Still there. Everything was still working well. Still working well. He had to come to realize how he was enslaved to his business. So was he actually the owner? I mean, let's think about that. If a person is enslaved to their business, even they're the owner, do they actually own the business or the business owns them? That's what we have to ask. Are you owned by your car or does your car own you? Somewhere I told you the story when I bought my first brand new car. I didn't realize it, but when I came to Kabbalah, I realized that the car owned me. Every week I was out washing and waxing. I was cleaning the inside. Nobody was eating or drinking in the car. Certainly nobody could smoke in the car, etc. Instead of going to play tennis or do other things, I was washing and waxing that car because it was my brand new car with all the bells and whistles, right? So I started to realize the car owned me. I came to Kabbalah. I started teaching in LA. And this is what made it very clear to me. I had a student, bless you, I had a student who was a relatively well-known producer at the time, Hollywood. And he told me the same thing. He said at one point at his high peak of success, he had like 4 houses around the country. And of course he had different cars there, and different guests would stay at different houses or whatever it was, until he realized that he was no longer the owner. The houses owned him, the gardens owned him, because he had to decide what was the landscaping in each house, which cars would be in which house, which guests could stay at which house, etc. So he wasn't free, he was working for the houses. The houses owned him. So he sold everything but one house that he lived in. He got rid of all his cars but one. And he told me, which is what I'm sharing with you now, he said he told all of his employees, he says, if you have a car, that when you go to the restaurant or you go somewhere and you leave the car with the valet, if while you're in the social gathering or you're at dinner or whatever it may be, if you're thinking about what is that valet doing with your car or what's going on with your car, he says, then it's too much car for you. It's too much car for you. So we have to start thinking about how we're imprisoned. Because, can I ask you a question? Let's see if we can get an answer from Facebook. If you don't know you're imprisoned, if you don't know you're held in bondage to some of these things as we've been talking about, can you ever be free? No, because you don't realize you're in bondage. So consciousness is everything. And we have to awaken the consciousness and the awareness in a more and more subtle way. Because I don't think any of us here are really in bondage as we might think outside. People who are addicted to drugs or alcohol or certain things like that. But we have our own bondage. We have our own bondage as we're speaking about now. And we have to be aware because we want to be free. We want to be let go. So in the bottom line, what are we really in bondage to? We're in bondage to that ego, or as we call it here in the teachings of Kabbalah, we're in bondage to the opponent that's in our head. That negative voice that's always naysaying. It's always seeing the half empty. It's always telling us how we can't achieve and things won't work out and it's always going to be chaotic. And you remember when your parents told you a nothing? Well, you really are a nothing. Even that, you're not in bondage to that in one way or another? Think how many times we're limiting ourselves because of things we've accepted from how we grew up. You heard your parents fight over money. So how many of us think, well, then money will only just bring fighting? So meanwhile, it's hand to mouth, hand to mouth. You're just barely making it. Because somewhere deep inside you, you believe if you get too much money, it means you're going to be fighting. Things like that. So are we free? No, we're in bondage to our old beliefs. So in the end of the story, all bondage is one simple thing: darkness. Darkness in one way or another. Spiritual darkness, I cannot see who I am, what I am, how I'm acting, in what way I'm caught up. So then here, we understand. What would true freedom be? What's lasting freedom look like? It can only come from one source. The light of God. The light of God, that's our only source of freedom. The nice part and the good thing for us is, guess what? Somebody ask, guess what? What? God filled our souls with 100% of its light. We already have the light. We already have the blessings. All we're here to do is uncover them through our actions. But again, consciousness is everything. So how are we going to begin? Let's start with the simplest thing. How many of you go to work so you'll make money to have a nice life? How many of you don't? How many of you aren't sure? Is there another choice? I didn't see everybody's hand. I saw everybody on Facebook raise their hand. I didn't see everybody here in the room, right? One way or another. How many of us do things in our life figuring and depending on that whatever we do, we're going to get certain results in our life? Right? You try and diet and exercise, you'll drop a few pounds, you figure you do a little more education, you'll be able to get a promotion or whatever it is, etc., etc. Right? If you talk nicely to people, you can get them to do what you want. So then think about what we've done to ourselves. We've burdened ourselves with how we behave and trying to figure out how to make things happen. So Kabbalah 1, we learn here in the center, in the first course, the foundation, it's not our business. The results are not up to us. We can do everything we think will bring a certain result, and it won't bring that result. Ask yourself, did it ever happen that you tried to do something to achieve a certain goal, and you followed all the steps that you've been told, and the goal didn't happen? Ever happen? Yeah. Well, then how much in control are we? We're not. But the nice thing is we don't have to be. Anyone here familiar with the concept of gardening? The concept. I'm not saying we're gardeners or farmers, but you know the concept, yes? What's the basic idea? You take an apple seed, a farmer takes the apple seed, has a nice wide open field, puts the seed in the ground. How many farmers do you know every day start digging up the seed to pull out the roots, pull out the trunk, pull out the branches from that seed? Any of you know? Well, obviously you never tried gardening then, right? You put the rose seed in the ground, and then what do? You water it, you take care of it, but in the end of the story, who or what makes the rose grow? God, nature. Nature, it's set up that way. We plant the seed, nature, the universe, manifests the seed in its way. You think every farmer that plants every good seed that they know of and takes care of it the best way they know of has abundant result harvest? Not all the time. So then what we learn here is we're partners with the Creator. We're partners with the universe. So we have our job, the universe, the Creator, has its job. In fact, why do we call it the Creator? See, they're calling. Why do we call it the Creator? Because the Creator creates the result. Our job is just to plant the seed. So then when you go to work, your job is just to inject more love, kindness, and compassion into everything you do at work and every person. You're driving down the street. Your job is to put more love, kindness, and compassion. Spread the light with your consciousness to every person around. The results then are up to the Creator, like nature. But I also want to remind you, if you plant an apple seed, does nature ever bring an orange? Right. So then if we plant seeds of love, kindness, and compassion, long term, it may not look like it right away, but long term, we're going to get love, kindness, and compassion back. A person plants the seeds of anger, jealousy, greed, ego, etc. What does the universe have to bring them back? The negativity. Right? How and what form it will take, that's the universe's job. So a person plants seeds of, let's say, greed and selfishness. It doesn't mean the first thing they're going to see is all their money leaving them or people being mean and nasty to them. They may see that they make the business deal and they make a lot of money. And then 6 months later, all that money disappears. Because the seed they planted was selfish. So the long-term results have to be chaos. Whereas the other way around, sometimes we'll do the good thing. We'll forgive people, we'll do something good, and you don't see right away how nice they become or that things change. But if you watch long enough, like that seed, you plant the seed, you don't see in the next week the apple tree or the orange tree. It takes a long time, but you see the process. So the universe similarly has a process. That's the Creator's, the universe's side. Our job is to behave. So think of the burden we just took away from each other. Think of how much easier it is. All I have to focus on is how I behave. I don't have to worry about the results. Do I have to have desire for the good things of life? Yes or yes? Yes. Why do I have desire? The Creator already gave them to us. So I have to have the desire for health and peace and love and prosperity and protection. But the form and the methodology and the process is up to the universe. My job is just to keep planting the seeds and watering it and nourishing it with more acts of love and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and tolerance. Then it will grow and it will manifest in the right way at the right time. That's where we have to trust. So we just made our job a lot easier. Focus on what our part is and let the universe take over, because as we look back on our life, the universe took over anyway. How many times did you do something and unexpected good came your way? Ever happen? Well, what does the word unexpected mean? It means we didn't plan it, right? We think if I get a good education, I'll get a good job. If I do X, Y, Z, then this ABC is going to happen. Well, then if unexpected good things happen, it means that it wasn't our plan. It wasn't in our hands. So when you look back at your life, hundreds or thousands of experiences came to us unexpectedly to show us the universe is doing what it needs to do anyway. It's pre-programmed to manifest from our energy. So then let's go back to what we can do. Put more good energy, more light, more blessing, more care and compassion into what you do every day, and watch it grow and manifest. Just be willing to be patient long term. So a few other things we can start to do to be more like the light. Remember the guilt, the resentment, the hurt, and the shame? Oh, you forgot it already. Look how the opponent works, right? A few minutes, we already forgot. No, think back. So what do we do to be light-like? Let me ask you, in God's universe, what we call the 99%, in the universe of the light itself, is there any time? No time. No time. So then, in that realm, which we also exist when we put our consciousness there, those things that happened 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years ago, when are they really? Right now. If, like the story I told you of that man, he's 50 some odd years old, but he can remember now, 5 years old, wishing the person would die. Guilt has been carried with him for 50 some odd years, so it's not 50 years ago. That guilt and that negative feeling is right now, which means his 5-year-old is also right now. So then what's a light behavior? Forgiveness. Forgiveness and apology. He's got to go back through his 5-year-old because it's his guilt. It's not the person that he wished to die. It's his guilt. He's got to go through his 5-year-old and send apology to that relative. I'm sorry that I wished you that you would die. He can explain it whatever. He thought, less pain and suffering, that's okay. But the guilt was his. So he has to go back to his 5-year-old, which is now inside of him, and heal that. He's got to apologize. Same thing. People who hurt you, if you want to be unhandcuffed from them, if you want to be out of the prison, because think about it, if you're handcuffed to that negative thing they did by your negative behavior in return, then anything else that they're doing of a negative nature and all that negative energy you're carrying around, everything that happens, you're part of it. Even you want to call it like collateral damage. So you're doing good things, but you're handcuffed to that person who's doing bad things. The bad things that come back to them, your collateral damage. You get taken up in that energy, in that environment. If you like that, go ahead, it's all yours. You don't want it, the only way to be free, the key to unlock those handcuffs is to forgive them. Send them the light of forgiveness. I forgive you for what you did. I send you the light to have a spiritual awakening. Don't worry, because that opponent that's always there to help us grow is going to tell you, yeah, but if you forgive them, then it means what they did was okay. Not at all. It's cause and effect. Their deal is between them and the universe, your deal between you and the universe. So even you forgive them and you send them the light of forgiveness doesn't exempt them from their cause and effect, but it frees you from their negative energy. But your opponent's going to make you think, oh, no. You're going to make them have good things after they did those bad things to you. No, never. Like you and I, what happened today already? We had the light turned on in our consciousness. So that as the light turns on, what do we see about ourselves? We see how we're in bondage. So we didn't see all the blessings right away. We saw how we're holding ourselves back, which then allows us to heal ourselves. So when you're sending the light of forgiveness to people who hurt you, you're also helping them to have the awakening in their consciousness to feel bad about what they did, to feel bad about their negative behavior so they will also change. And in the end of the story, isn't that what we really want? Why did you run away from them when they did that bad thing? Because you wanted to be away from them. You wanted to have good in your life away from their bad. Well, what would happen if you, by sending them light, can awaken their awareness, and they will go through their own transformation process, and they will have to make the effort to repair and fix what they did, and they become now a greater being of happiness, joy, love, and compassion. Then the mean, rotten, nasty person doesn't exist anymore, do they? And we've just made one more beacon of light in the world. Think of it that way. And whatever we cause in the world comes back to us. So we cause another billion people to have that spiritual awakening. Think how much light comes back to us to help us on our path, to give us not only the awareness, but the strength to keep moving forward. So we have to start thinking, how can I behave more and more like the light? How can I achieve freedom? So I had a couple things that I wanted to share with you. Forgiveness and apology we spoke about. What about just kindness? If you act with kindness, it frees you from that negative feeling of the hurt and the anger and the jealousy and the greed and the rest of it. It frees you. What's the cost? What does it cost you? Nothing really, except you remove yourself from chaos. You remove yourself from those people. So you're now, initially, before you handcuff yourself to them, you're already freeing yourself from them. Just act with kindness. Don't worry about them. The universe will take care of them. Remember, your kindness will come back to you. So now you're freed from more and more negative people. Generosity. The more generous we are, then we're free from financial stress. It's a law of the universe. Tithing, charity, donations, etc. What is it saying? Because it frees me from having to think, I'm the one who has to make my money. I'm the one who has to earn it. I'm the one who has... No. What's my source? If I'm generous, I'm acknowledging as I'm generous. The Creator, the light force, is my source. And how big is the Creator? How abundant is the Creator? Oh, you're not sure? Okay. How abundant is the Creator? They're telling me infinitely abundant. So then how much could we get from the Creator? Anything we need. But we have to plant the seed. So the seed of generosity frees us from financial stress and worry. What about humility? Moses, one of the greatest spiritual people of all time, spoke to God like this, says knew God face to face, was on Mount Sinai, all this amazing stuff. Do you think Moses would look down at people and say, hey, I'm Moses. I speak to God like this. God and I are good friends. Why are you telling me this? Why are you accusing me of these bad things? Why are you saying these things? Why are you doing this? No, it says in the Bible, Moses was the most humble man. Because as my teachers, our teachers, the Rav Berg and Karen Berg teach us, humility frees us from having to know it all and gives us the freedom to ask for and receive help. Anyone here not need help? But the moment we say to ourselves, I know what to do, I know what I should be doing, I know how to do it, you just pushed away anyone and anything, including the light of the Creator, from helping you. The moment you say, you know what, I don't know it all, that's humility. Nothing wrong with saying I don't know it all. All right, how many people have you accused of being a know-it-all? Don't raise your hands. Okay. But you know what I'm saying? Oh, that person, they think they know it all. Which means what? Why do you say that? Because you're sure you're right on a subject. They're trying to tell you how they're right and you're wrong. And then we say, no, see, they think they're a know-it-all. Which means they're not open to hear another side. They're not open to see a bigger picture. They're not open to gather more information. So imagine when we think we know it all, who did we push away ultimately? The light of the Creator, the source of all of our lasting blessings. So to be able to say and have that freedom, say, you know what, I don't know it all. I could use your help. Then you're open and you can receive, right? Because you're immediately going to receive from the universe. If you're saying, hey, I know it all, you don't need to help me, then it won't. Because we plant the seed, the universe will manifest. So the know-it-all plants the seed of pushing the light away. The one who's humble and says, you know what, I don't have all the answers, then is already open and the universe immediately will bring them help. Whether it's inspiration, clarity, or it'll be through people. The right things will come in the right way. Just reminded me, about 20 years ago, we had a student from LA who was visiting New York and had difficulty, had something going wrong with his eyesight, and had something, he didn't have the money, but he had heard there's like a $50,000 surgery or procedure that could clear up his sight. Well, he was in the center in New York, and because he had been a student for a while, he knew that even though he was visiting the center in New York, he wasn't a visitor. He knew he was still a student, even though he was visiting another center, and he understood, let me get in and do what I can. How can I help? How can I volunteer? What can I do to help in the center? Can I carry books? Can I clean? Can I, whatever it might be, run errands? Well, sure enough, on one of those errands, he met somebody who knew somebody who was a doctor, and guess what that doctor did? Knew how to do that surgery and did it for free. You can say it's coincidence, you can say whatever you want, but when you look at the pattern, you see the dot, the dot, the dot, the dot, and then as we often say, when you connect the dots, you see how it works. Connect the dots in your life, you'll see how it works. Results have never really been up to us. The opponent makes us think it was. I did this and this happened, right? I practiced in tennis and I got better. No, but who gave my muscles the capability? Who gave me the capability to even work to be a better tennis player? The light of the Creator. So even that I had to understand in retrospect was not just me. We're partners. We're partners. So then you start opening humility. Now, here comes one of the bigger things. Freedom from what other people think about us. Yeah, I felt it. Everyone went, oh, like I just punched everyone in the gut, right? Because in one way or another, we all have that. I'm sure there are people we say to ourselves, I don't care what they think. I'll do what I want. That could be true. But somewhere along the line, there are people who are wondering, uh-oh, what are they thinking about me? And you know, the craziest thing? Ask me, what is the craziest thing? Okay. A little participation, okay. That often, who are the people we're worried what they think about us? Strangers we never met before and may never see again. But we're worried about what they're going to think about us. I mean, it's almost sensible to be worried about what your family, your friends might think of you. That's one thing. But to think about strangers on the street or strangers in a supermarket or whatever, what they're going to think about you? What are they going to think of? They don't even know your name. What do you think? They're going to walk out, ha, 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 ha. You know, I saw that guy Chaim. You know what he did at the supermarket? How he acted like that? And now they're going to go tell people they don't even know who I am. Why am I worried about what they're thinking about me? So the very nice story I heard, two quick stories I want to tell you. One was Moses. Imagine Moses. Moses, you all know Moses, right? Greatest spiritual leader ever. Took us out of bondage, actually, out of slavery in Egypt, freed us in the desert, and then we came to the point where we were ready to have the Creator, what's called the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah, dwell with us. So what does he do? He gets the inspiration. God says, look, I want you to build what's called the tabernacle. Collect from all the Israelites that you freed out of Egypt, collect from them all their gold and silver, build these things, and then you'll build a place where I can dwell. So Moses, he says, he goes to the people and says, look, give me your money, give me the gold, give me the silver, give me the garments and all these different things that God told me, materials for this tabernacle, and we'll have a place, we'll have this tabernacle where the Creator will be with all of us and we'll all hear the voice of God. So what did the people do? They gave 3 months to build all the pieces. Then the Kabbalist said, for 3 months, nothing happened. There was no assembling the pieces. There was no tabernacle being built. 3 months. Because the way it's written, God wanted, and it's interesting it's happening now, God wanted in the cosmic plan that this tabernacle should be built on the first day of Aries, which is coming up Friday. We'll talk about it a little later, right? This Friday. He wanted that. So, like the Kabbalists say, well then, God, if you knew it was going to take 3 months to build, just start building 3 months before Aries. Why leave the 3-month gap between when you build the pieces and when you want it put together? Why? Because he had to leave a space. What are people going to do? What about the patience and the perseverance of people? Did they trust Moses or they didn't? But unfortunately, there were a lot of people who start naysaying. Look, nothing happened. Moses told us, give the gold, come help, do this, give our money, our time, etc., and we'll have a place for the Holy Spirit. What happened? Nothing. So in those 3 months, we kind of cleared out. kind of start to see who are the ones who are the true believers, who have certainty, and who didn't. Got rid of all the rabble-rousers, the naysayers, the negative people, right? And the rest of us, we persevered. And then on the first day of Aries, which is coming up, it basically assembled itself. Basically assembled itself. But for those 3 months, Moses didn't care what they said. He was connected to the light of the Creator. He still had his humility. And it didn't matter how bad they talked about him. They said some nasty things. You and I probably had nothing close to this. They accused him of embezzling, murder, adultery, nepotism. I mean, everything you can think of. They accused Moses of it. Right? He didn't care. He waited. He knew. He still stayed connected, prayed, meditated, whatever it was. And then boom, it showed up. My teacher, the Rav, I'll never forget this time, back in the mid-90s, the center was just starting to reach an international recognition, right? I started 30 years ago with 3 small, tiny offices. In fact, probably all 3 offices were maybe 1.5 times this room. One in Israel, one in New York, and one in LA. That was it. So in the mid-90s, suddenly we started to get recognition as Hollywood started to show up. All right? Hollywood starts to show up. So, one person, they come, and it was all new, and it was great, and they loved it, so they bring other people. So I'll never forget the first time Rav Berg met one of these big shots of Hollywood. Because the Rav also, as Karen today, doesn't care what people think. They have a job, they have a mission, and they're just going to continue. It's been 50 years now to bring Kabbalah to the masses. You like it, you don't like it, people say good or bad, doesn't matter. It's not stopping them. Because as we said, the deal is between each of us and the Creator, not between us. So here comes this, a few people from Hollywood, and they bring this new guy. And the new guy comes to the Rav, "Hi, Rav Berg, my name is whatever." And the Rav looked directly at this person. First time meeting him, looks at him and says, "Is it true what they say about you, that you're one of the biggest liars in Hollywood?" Everybody on that table that heard it was like white as a sheet. I mean, could you imagine saying this? Here's somebody who, if they connected, could help, right, talk to more people and reach out to maybe millions of people. And the guy basically didn't say anything, and we thought that was the last we were going to see of him. During the week, he called the Rav, one-on-one conversation. He told the Rav, he says, "Yes, it is true. It is true. And thank you for bringing it up, because I do want to change. What can I do?" So when we learn how to connect to the light, the right words will come out of our mouth, the right things will come out. But we have to be willing to persevere and stay on that path. Just do what the right light thing is to do, and don't worry about the results, and don't worry about what people say. Now, I know you and I, right, because the voice is already telling me, so it's got to be telling all of us. So you're going to be 100% tomorrow? Is that what Chaim wants from you? Tomorrow you're not going to care about anybody, anything, etc.? No. But what about growing into it? Our job is to grow, to persevere and grow more and more and more. That's it, but never give up. That's the key. Take your half full and fill it into the half empty part. Expand it. Because remember, Kabbalistically, is there such a thing as a half empty part? God gave us everything. It already exists. It's only half empty because we have half of it covered up. Half of it is exposed, the part we've already living. The other half is covered up. Our job is to expand the part that's exposed by removing the cover. So the more we'll focus on that, then the more freedom we will have. And the ultimate freedom? Inner peace. What could be better than that? How many times we heard of people who are in jail, literally in physical jail, they have inner peace. You have people who are out doing things, amazing things, they've got status, fame, fortune, this and this. They have no inner peace. Who's in jail? Who's really in jail? So our job is to understand that real freedom is when I know that I have a connection to the light that does not quit, and that the universe is on my side to help me fulfill my total 100% potential. And it's going to push me and support me all the way. And I want to put this idea in your mind. There are some people who save up for retirement, right? Put money away, put money away, put money away. What about, let's today start thinking about having a retirement account of the light. So the same way, every day we do actions that are outside our comfort zone to share, forgive, apologize, give, help, etc. We're putting light in that spiritual retirement account. because the light has the power to cleanse any and everything that we've ever done. The light can repair anything in a negative way that we've ever done in this life, or if you believe in any past life. That's the power of the light. But we have to be willing to persevere, to endure, and to do what's necessary, and not look for the immediate results. Because it may take 6 weeks, it may take a year, it may take 5 years, but it will happen. So I want to kind of finish with this story that I was reminded of recently. Some of you heard of, there was a great Kabbalist in the 1700s, the Baal Shem Tov, that's how they called him, the owner of the good name, miracle worker. He was a great Kabbalist, and of course, as all great Kabbalists, when they bring something into the world, you always have the naysayers. So of course, in his time, everybody accused him of being a charlatan, he was, a liar, he was a cheat, and this and this and this. Because why? He was bringing happiness and joy. He was bringing the wisdom of love and kindness and joy in your connection to the light to everybody in the world. So he performed miracles and miracles and miracles. As he was leaving the world, he looked at his close students and he told each one what they had to do to continue. So one of his students he says, I want you, you've been with me almost the longest of any of my students. I want you to go around and just tell stories of the miracles that we performed. Okay, so the guy gets started and he asks his teacher, he says, but how long do I have to do this? And before Baal Shem Tov left the world, he says, you'll know when you've done your job. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov leaves the world. This guy's going around, he's telling stories. He goes town by town by town. You remember, you're talking the 1700s. So he's going around just to tell the stories of the Baal Shem Tov and all the miracles that happened, etc. And he's going along the way, and then he hears in one town, there's a very wealthy man who will pay lots of money for stories of the Baal Shem Tov. So the guy figures, okay, I've got to, tell the story. I've been barely making it. Here's a guy, who wants to pay for all the stories I could tell. I've got thousands of stories. I'll be able to send money back to my family and, really support them. So he arrives at the house of this wealthy man. He says, yes, I was a student of the Baal Shem Tov for many years. I have lots of stories. So he says, we'll spend the weekend. So Friday night, they're all sitting around to have dinner, and the rich man has had a number of his friends there so that the storyteller could tell stories of the Baal Shem Tov. So he says, okay, time to tell stories. And this man who had been with the Baal Shem Tov and probably told thousands of stories previously couldn't remember one story. Now he's getting a little embarrassed. So the rich man looks at him and says, okay, I understand, a long journey, maybe you're a little tired. Sleep and we'll see tomorrow. We'll have lunch and you can tell us the stories then. So sure enough, comes the next day. He's assembled his friends again. He looks at the storyteller. He says, tell us a story. He can't think of a story, right? Now he's thinking, they all think I'm a liar. I just came for the money, this, that, and the other thing. So it goes that way. Comes Saturday night, and he's ready to leave. And the man looks at him and says, well, I appreciate that you were here and this and this and this. And, he almost wants to slink away in the. He says, here, let me just give you a little bit for the time. So he gave him something, and he rides off. So the storyteller, on horseback, carriage, about an hour out, all of a sudden he remembers a story. And now he's thinking to himself, do I go back and tell him, what do they think of me already, this and this? He says, no, my teacher told me this is my job. I went there with the intent of telling the story. Nothing came to me. If the story came to me now, then I must have to go tell this person. So he drives the hour back. He knocks on the door and he says, I'm here, to tell you a story. And he looks at this rich man and he could see the rich man's been crying. He says, please come in. And he says, I don't know what it is. He says, I was with my teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, for years. I have thousands of stories. I couldn't remember a story. And even now, he says, I only remember part of a story. But I wanted to tell you because you were so kind to me. So he tells him a story like this. He says, and back in those days, they had pogroms. They go through different cities and they had military people, the police, whatever, and they just go and destroy a whole city. So the decree had come that this one city was going to be wiped out the next day, so either leave or what have you. So the Baal Shem Tov went specifically to that city. And he tells this student who became the storyteller, he says, I want you to go to the head Cossack or whatever they were. I want you to go tell him that I want to see him. So the storyteller looks at him and says, this guy's a murderer. Tomorrow they want to, just ransack the whole town and everything else. Couldn't you find someone else to talk to? He says, no, I want you to go get him. Okay, so he goes to this guy. He says, my teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, wants to talk to you. And for whatever reason, the guy says, okay. So he brings him to the Baal Shem Tov. They go into the Baal Shem Tov's room where he was staying. About 3 hours later, the guy comes out, and the next day, nothing. All the Cossacks left, this, that, and the other thing, whatever it was. And the storyteller telling this rich man, he says, that's all I know. I don't know what the beginning was. I don't know what happened, what went on there. He says, but that's it, and I just knew I had to come tell you because you were so nice. And the rich man looks at him and says, don't you recognize me? He says, no, because you're talking, whatever, 15, 20 years earlier. He says, I was that person. I was the guy who was going to wipe out that city. He says, but when I spoke to your teacher, he reached into my heart and he began the cleansing process of all my anger, all my negativity, etc. And he told me that if I will give up my negative ways, I will be cleansed of all the negativity that I've done. And I asked him, how will I know? He says, when you hear this story, you'll know you're done. He says, so when you came and you didn't remember the story, I knew it's because I hadn't cleansed enough. And he says, that's why when you left, I began to cry and beg for forgiveness, cleansing, because I know I didn't do enough. He says, and then you came back and told me. So for you and I today, what does it mean? Never give up. Never give up. When we will reach inside our heart and our soul, and we will bring the light of the Creator in, then, like the Baal Shem Tov did, like Moses, like all the great spiritual leaders you can think of, when you reach out with love, kindness, and compassion to others, not only are you cleansing your soul, but you're also helping to cleanse the other soul and the light of God in them. Our job is just to persevere. Keep spreading the light, keep sharing, keep acting like the light with love, kindness, and compassion, and we'll be able to turn the planet by awakening every person to behave with greater love and peace, and then the world will truly be in freedom. God bless.